Give our viewers the details on what you mentioned just a minute ago, which is the messages that law enforcement say were on the suspect's murder weapon.
Right. So apparently when they found that weapon just in the woods, just in this neighborhood behind the campus in the direction that the suspect fled, they found engravings on the ammunition and the rifle. And I believe we have a soundbite that we can play describing what those engravings were. Take a listen.
Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital OWO, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO."
So, O Bella Ciao, that is a song glorifying the partisans who fought against the fascists and the occupying Nazis in Italy during the Second World War. And later, when the governor was asked about a motive, he said, well, maybe you don't need to look any further than those words, "Hey, fascist, catch." Dana?
I mean, just so chilling, all of it. Nick, thank you so much for being there and your terrific reporting. I want to turn now to former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe and criminologist Casey Jordan. Thank you both for.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Just wanted to see what CNN has to say about this. Obviously everyone's kind of all in their little echo chamber, in their little bubble, everyone's in their silos right now. Listening to. I'm consuming massive amount of media. Obviously, I'm trying to consume from as many sides as I possibly can so that I can get an understanding of what it is they're trying to do. What is the left? What are non-MAGA entities trying to do? How are they trying to spin this? Essentially, what are we up against, right? Like, what are their points of view? And do they line up with reality? I can say that from what I'm seeing on X and other places like that it is, it's a really terrible time that we're in right now. If you please can hit the subscribe button, and it helps me out a lot. We're going to go through this. I mean, McCabe and stuff like that. This is going to be a tough watch, I'm sure. Maybe they'll be, try to be down the line a little bit, but we'll see. Take a look, see what they say, and analyze it.
Being here, Andy, let's start with you. Law enforcement clearly has a lot more answers. We heard it this morning, but there are still questions. What are your questions right now?
Yeah, so we have so much more to work with now as a result of the press conference. Law enforcement will have an infinitely greater amount of details as this day goes on and we roll into tomorrow, because what they're doing right now undoubtedly are executing search warrants at locations relevant to this person, the shooter, at his home, likely on his vehicle, and then the kind of non-physical search warrants on his Discord channel, search warrants on any other social media he has, on any electronic devices that they're able to seize from the physical places that they've searched. So they're going to get a lot more information about really what was in his head, what his thoughts were, what his motivation might have been. One of the biggest questions that I have now, Dana, is from this remarkable exchange that they got when investigators interacted with his roommate last night. And his roommate was able to show those Discord chats by showing the investigators his own phone, and they took photographs of those chats from the phone. And the chats are remarkable to me, because the idea that an assassin who has gone to this level of planning, who's traveled over 100 miles from his own home to execute this crime, who thought through showing up in one set of clothes, changing his clothes to commit the crime, and then changing back to try to escape. And then a big piece of that escape was dropping the rifle in an area, possibly dismantling it, but also wrapping it in a towel so he could go back and retrieve it later. Apparently, he shared that part of his plan with his roommate. The chats refer to the location of the rifle, the fact that it's wrapped in a towel, the fact that he was basically surveilling the location for a safe time when he could go back in and retrieve it. So that raises the very considerable question of how much did this roommate know? Why was he included in this part of the plan? Did he understand that there was an assassination involved here? If so, was he of any assistance to that plan? So even though the governor said that they don't currently have a plan to make any other arrests.
It's pretty concerning. I have an investigative background. I guess I keep saying one day I will get into it. But it is pretty concerning that I don't particularly like the way this was handled. I just think that there could have been more information disseminated sooner. And that's for the twofold. One, in attempting to bring the investigation to a close, to a conclusion, attempting to apprehend the individual. Like, they had those images, they knew those images, they should have released those images. You want that information out there right away. Several reasons. Why? The more time, the harder it is. The further away the person can get, the more they can change their appearance. And then secondarily, you have somebody that's just assassinated somebody. He's absolutely armed and dangerous. He's in his mindset is, you don't know what his mindset is, if he's going to be willing to be taken alive, if he has other targets in mind. You have no idea what's going on. So it was a very, and then Cash putting out the tweet saying that they got him and then investigating. There was a lot of like very rookie mistakes in the handling of this. And then in the end, I mean, it was mainly because the father, apprehended his own son. That's why we are where we are right now. We're not here because they did a bang up job and they found him in his house. We're here because he got turned in, essentially. So there's a lot of concerning things when it comes to, like, again, I've worked with the FBI before. I've done things with them. They are very good at long-term investigations where things are, everyone can take their time. We can sit down, we can process data, we can go through stuff like that. When it comes to on the ground, just getting things done, something has to be done right now. I would take pretty much any city law enforcement agency over the FBI, personally, from my experience, just because those guys, they do it day in and day out, right? They need something solved right away. They need it solved now. Somebody gets murdered. They're on it, on the ground, getting information, putting out wanted flyers, putting out information, disseminating information to the public. They have a much better understanding and a handling on, things that have urgency, a sense of urgency. The FBI is a wonderful agency when it comes to processing massive amounts of data and putting together an amazing case for, RICO or all these other things. But when it comes to, like, this shit needs to get solved, I don't know if they're the best agency. I don't know if they have, the best people in place for things of that nature. At least from what I've seen in this investigation, that's kind of what the road that this leads me down. It just didn't. It wasn't. They were not impressing me with how they handled this at all.
Arrests. I think that's a situation that could very well change as time goes on.
No, that's interesting. I perked up when I heard him answer that question about other arrests. Clearly. Potentially suggesting the roommate. Casey, let's talk a little bit more about the bit of information that we have now about Tyler Robinson, his behavior, which law enforcement was told that he has become more political in recent years and specifically had conversations with his family about Kirk, quote, spreading hate. What do the new details tell you about the alleged shooter's motive?
Well, to be honest, there's so much we don't know that we really do want to know as we repiece what's been going on in his life in the last few years. I wouldn't say he's been so much become more political as he's become more politicized, perhaps. And usually you see this happen in the lives of young people who don't have enough purpose in their lives. And he did not attend that particular university based on what I've read. He just had one semester at the State University 4 years ago, like did the freshman year semester and, didn't go back. So what has been happening in the last 4 years? Does he have a job? Was he living at home and then got his own place? Where does he live with his roommate? Did he have a girlfriend? Did he have any purpose in his life? When you don't have purpose, kind of like idle hands are the devil's play shop, an idle mind is ripe for the picking for radicalization or politicization. And it just looks like he was spending all of his time online, reading things, and buying into things that gave him a sense of purpose and power. Because really, this was just a power move, probably more personal than political, to make himself feel powerful. He really didn't have a good escape or exit plan. So he didn't think beyond the act. And that tells us a lot about his lack of maturity.
I want to drill down on that point that you just made about the fact that he clearly lived on the internet. And Andy, what law enforcement officials said, and the governor himself said, is that these bullet casings, explain the bullet casings, and to people who don't live on the internet, several of the markings were specifically memes or sort of ideas that are found in internet culture. And we cannot, I think, drill down on this enough, how much this is potentially playing into not just this horrible tragedy, but society.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so I'm dating myself a little bit here, but when I was running the counterterrorism division in the FBI, we were confronted with this awful tidal wave of radicalization as ISIS kind of came to prominence in Syria and Iraq. We started trying to identify those key radicalizers that had an impact on people who we had arrested and convicted for terrorism offenses or offenses related to terror.
You know, the lady made a really good point, and I'm actually kind of, I guess, happy to see that, you know, CNN kind of at least gave a little bit of oxygen to that idea, to the idea that what CNN and other news agencies like them, and other and the left in general has been promulgating over years and years and years is, you know, the thing that, you know, you don't have to get married, you don't have to have children, you don't have to do all these things. And the result of that is really bad. The result of that is anything but good. Having children is, first and foremost, the most important thing anyone can do in their life, period. I mean, there really is, there's nothing else you can say, in my opinion, that would change that. And the fact that that is not at the forefront of, there's a lot of reasons, right? Economic reasons, socioeconomic reasons. I just believe socially, as a society, as our culture, that we have strayed very far away from that being highlighted as extremely important. It's the most important. As soon as you have a child, you are no longer number one for yourself. And that's how you grow. That's how you become an adult. You cannot be an adult if you're still the most important thing to yourself. It just doesn't compute, you know. Millions of years of people have gone through crazy things, you know, from sleeping in caves to hunter-gatherers to, you know, to get to the point where I'm sitting here now. Think about all of the people, my ancestors, that have lived and died and just done the craziest shit, gone through famine and murder and horrors and disease, all that stuff. And they went through all that stuff to get me where I am today. And that's true. That's true for all of us. It's been insanely important for thousands and thousands of years. And a society that doesn't put that at the forefront is doomed to failure. I mean, how do we not see that? How is that not painfully obvious? If we don't say the family is the most important thing in our society, then we lose the family, then we lose us, and we're done. It's over. And, you know, just these guys sitting around playing video games all day long and not, you know, I don't see how we get out of this. The only way we get out of this is the people that have the values that I think I have. We make more of us. That's what I've tried to do. I wish I would have had more children. You know, I had a few, and I am constantly telling people to have more children. People that I know, the people that I care about, always telling them to have more children. A life that's just a life without purpose. You know, they mean everything to you, and as soon as you have one, and as soon as they come out, it's abundantly clear.
And we had a laundry list of all kinds of environmental and historical biological factors. And there was only one that was absolutely consistent among all of our convicted terrorists or terrorist associates, and that was the consumption of online propaganda. And this was, of course, earlier days, and online propaganda started with AQAP, with Inspire magazine, and then ultimately ISIS elevated the game. They were producing like videos of beheadings and things. And what we realized from that was the consumption of that propaganda, which we know on social media is actually targeted to you based on its outrageous content, because the people who put social media and the internet, they understand that people react more strongly with content that they find to be objectionable or outrageous or what have you. So whether at this point today, whether you lean politically right or left, you are drawn to, by the way the social media is set up, content that is more likely to push you in a radical direction. And I think this is not just internet culture now, it is our culture. The internet is ubiquitous.
So I'm not a big fan of McCabe, but listen to what he said there. Very interesting. The existence of the algorithm, the fostering, the growing, the algorithm grows, right? The company prospers when they get you. It's kind of like hate watching, right? They know what's going to tick you off. They know what's going to push your buttons. They know what's going to just push you over the edge and want to see more and just be angry and just fester, and they're going to feed it to you. That's going to be both ways. They're also going to know, like, I watched a ton of woodworking videos. That's one of the things I like doing. Obviously, I'm going to get a lot of those. But, my algorithm is a little bit jacked up because I try to do a lot of research, and I try to watch things that I wouldn't look for. So, it's hard for me to gauge. I usually ask my other friends, like, what are they seeing? What do they see? I have friends that are super, super liberal. And then I have friends that are obviously like very far right. And I always ask them, what's coming up? What's coming up? And it's whatever is coming up is stuff that you watch. You want to watch more of it. So if you enjoy hate watching, then you're going to get a lot of it. It's just going to keep coming. It's going to keep coming at you. And, that's ultimately what you're going to end up getting, consuming and surrounding. That's going to be your bubble. That's going to be your world. So I you know what? I mean, I'm not a big fan of McCabe, but that was a relatively good point. I have to admit.
Particularly young people are on it. It is their means of communication. It's their means of community and interacting with their friends. So, I mean, we should be prepared to see a lot more of this.
And real quick, Casey, we're pretty much out of time, but I do want to pick up on that because this suspect is 22-year-old male. And if you look at so many of the people who are convicted of crimes or even accused of committing crimes that are of this ilk, they are young men who perhaps are also, among many other things, part of the epidemic of loneliness.
Right. And we do see that as a common thread. They are rudderless. They feel isolated. They feel disenchanted. They feel like...
Why? Why is that? Why has society done that to them? It can't just be that now we have the internet, so now that's a tool. No, we've lost our way as a society. We're telling women that they don't need men, right? We're telling women that they could be, a boss girl, and then, when you're in your mid-30s, find some random dude and start having kids with him, right? We as a society, the media played a big role in this, have essentially not, lifted up the family. And so when you have these... as a young man, your worth in life is relatively low. That's just the fact, right? Because you're not a provider yet. You haven't found a mate. You're not a husband. You haven't had children. You're not a father. So you're almost nothing. You're coming of age. You're trying to be that thing where you can provide, where you can do all of those things. And if you look around and there's nobody of the opposite sex that's there that wants to partake in that with you, what do you do? What do you do? I mean, just we need to start telling women that, hey, listen, having a family, especially when you're younger, is amazing, and it's way more beneficial to you than working some shitty job, doing what. Listen, if you're a career woman, those are your goals. That's what you want to do. That's fine. It's fine. But on the whole, we need moms and dads, right? That's what we need. We need good moms and good dads. And you need both. You can't just have a bunch of dads that have potential, right? All these young guys that are lonely, those are potential fathers. They're potential good fathers, right? But they have to be placed in a position where they have somebody reciprocating, somebody on the other side that's willing to have a family with them.
They were sold a bill of goods that if they were bright and studied and, try to get a job, that the world would be handed to them. And then they find out that it's just not true. They look for someone to blame, someone to scapegoat. And in this particular case, I think this young man was radicalized and picked a scapegoat named Charlie Kirk. I just think we'll learn more, but I don't think he's even seeking fame and fortune. He just wanted a moment of power over something.
That may very well be. May very well be. Guys, thanks a lot for joining me. 6283 Talk on the X if you want to follow me. I'll do a few more of these because I really want to dive into what the media that the majority of us are not used to consuming, what they're saying, how they're saying it. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit more careful because, let's be honest, I guarantee you that they were, they definitely helped facilitate the creation of monsters like this. Not to say that, they're not to blame. Ultimately, the person to blame is the person that pulled the trigger. But when you spend years, calling someone a Hitler or Nazi or fascist or destroying the Constitution or, whatever terms you want to use, you're putting people in a situation where they're going to say, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to try to save the world. I have friends that are liberal friends that they're vegetarians. They won't even eat meat. They won't even bring themselves to kill something that, to sustain themselves. I just tweeted this or whatever. And yet they're still okay with this person being killed. Like, I'm working hard to try to get them to understand that you have a problem there. Like, there's something wrong. Like, you won't eat a piece of beef because you believe it's wrong to kill an animal, but you're okay with somebody being murdered for talking. And their algorithm has proven that to them. Right? I mean, they're just constantly sending me, TikToks of Kirk and the things that he said, some of it taken out of context and some of it not. And it doesn't matter if it's taken out of context. It doesn't matter what the hell you say. You can say the most despicable things in the world. There is nothing that you can say that would justify murder. Nothing. But this is where we are. Thanks a lot for joining me. I'm John Soto. See you again in the next video. Take care, guys.